Hello and welcome into our pre-show here on Computer America. It's Friday, and we got a terrific show planned for you. In both hours of the program, we have Nathan Evans, managing editor of Popzara magazine, is going to be joining us. So it should be a lot of fun. So sit back, relax as we do 2 hours of Computer America with Nathan Evans, managing editor of Popzara magazine. And we have 30 seconds left on the board.
Did you know you can select multiple tabs at once?
On what?
On any browser, I assume.
No, I did not know that. How do you select?
Hold on the Shift key, left click on your browsers, and it should select those and not select the others.
I'm not getting that.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live, it's America's longest-running national radio talk show on computers, Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. Look for Craig's weekly column in your favorite newspaper. This show is being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. Keep it here for technology news, computer products, guest interviews, and your phone calls. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. It's the nation's longest-running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers. Computer America is heard around the world and coast to coast. And I'm your host, Craig Crossman.
And I'm your co-host, Ben.
And it's Friday! Once again, another week of broadcasting excellence filed away.
Or at least it will be after today.
Yes, it is. And it is Friday, and welcome to all of you here on our show on this glorious Friday afternoon. We got a terrific show planned for you. In both hours, we will be speaking with Nathan Evans, the managing editor of Popzara magazine, is going to be joining us for both hours. Nathan is always a lot of fun, and that's why we try to have him on Fridays, because everything's kind of up in the air. We talk tech, we talk movies, we talk, you name it, we talk about it. And he's going to be joining us for both hours here on the show. Also, it's our social media winner of the week. Yeah, we're going to be giving away that Logitech M535 Bluetooth wireless mouse, valued at $40. Some lucky person's going to be winning that as well. Now, let's get the stuff out of the way. If you have a comment or a question for myself, for Nathan, Ben, just give us a call, 347-884-8881. That's 347-884-8881. We'll get you on and get you through. Or you can go to any page at ComputerAmerica.com. In the upper right-hand corner of any page, it says Submit a Question. Just click that. It's a link. It'll take you to our question submission page where you can type in your question, hit the submit button, and Ben and I will see what you've typed immediately. The other thing you can do is also watch a show. We have live streaming video of the program. So just go to any page at ComputerAmerica.com. In the menu bar there it says Show Lounge. Just click it. You'll be instantly transported to our live streaming video page. You'll be joined to the show already in progress, and you can watch the show. Ben has the technology to display websites, videos, movies, links, all that. You can see him do all of that, and just makes for a better listening experience when you can see it as well as hear. We have all available, again, at ComputerAmerica.com, the internet home of our radio broadcast. 347-884-8881 is the number to call. So, that said, and before I invite Nate to the festivities, Ben, anything else you want to mention?
Festivities, that's a high synonym for what's going on here. Anything else going on? No, I hope everyone out there is enjoying their Friday. I know, we come on 3 to 5 Eastern, so a lot of people, by the time the show ends, so will your work week, and I hope you all have a good weekend. But other than that, no, I think Nate is waiting very, very patiently. We should jump to him.
Okay, well, as I said, Popzara. If you want to know what Popzara means, well, it's defined as being a bazaar of popular culture spanning the world of arts and entertainment. And throughout Popzara, the website, you'll see views on video gaming, movies, technology, cultural movements, icons, Yeah, even politics. You can find opinion pieces, debates, reflections, reviews, analysis, news tidbits, and so much more. So back with us today is the managing editor of all of that, the managing editor of Popzara, Nathan Evans. Nate, welcome into Computer America. How are you? And you are muted.
I was being prophylactically nice, so I couldn't comment during your commentary. That's what it was, and I swear it's my story, and I'm sticking to it. No,
All right.
hey, Craig, hey Ben, welcome back. Nice to be back too.
Well, yeah, it's always nice having you here on the show, and
Sure.
here on a beautiful Friday. I don't know if it's beautiful where you are, but it's beautiful
No,
where we are.
not
Yeah.
really. Tornadoes, rain. You know, this is what happens when you sin. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm in the middle of the country somewhere out there, you know, across the rainbow in ruby red slippers, and I've seen better weather. I've seen worse, but if for anybody listening, I'm a little under the weather today, so hopefully I've caffeinated myself back into some sort of cognizance.
So you're having bad weather and you're under it as well.
I am under, over, inside, outside, so it should be a lot of fun.
It should be. Well, you know, we've got lots to talk about. Let's get a couple of movies out of the way. The Captain America movie still isn't here, and I take it you don't have what is it? Some of the movie critics can get to see pre-release.
You know, it's the Captain American movie isn't here in the U.S., but I actually had a friend go see it there over in Thailand on the 27th.
Isn't that sad? Wow. The Captain America movie started about a Captain America, created in America, does not open in America first. Mm-hmm. In Thailand, it's not Captain Thai.
Captain Thai. I was gonna say.
Well,
he doesn't attack you with pad Thai noodles.
It opened in Thailand. It opened, you know, and it obviously opened over in Europe as well. So like everywhere except the U.S. Has already, you know, gotten their tickets first.
What kind of reviews? Have you heard any reviews of the movie yet?
Yeah, they said they loved it. It's, you know, everything you like about Captain America, you know, Winter Soldier, but better and with more characters. So
faster and more intensity.
Yeah, and Spider-Man too, obviously.
Spider-Man and a couple others. So
I still don't know if the Spider-Man is was it the European gentleman who played Spider-Man in the last 3 Spider-Man movies. It's not Tobey Maguire, I know that. So
it's a new, more economically viable actor to play Spider-Man. It's a kid. I think they want him around for a while.
Ah, okay.
Well, they got to start him out low because also news today. I don't know if either one of you caught this, but they are going to be releasing a new Spider-Man movie. You know, not a probably a reboot, not like a sequel to any of the others, but
another reboot.
They're doing it under Marvel, like not under Sony, where Spider-Man is technically owned, but licensed by Marvel. They're making a new Marvel movie in the universe, so it's not like a standalone thing like all the other all these Spider-Man films have been.
Well, they Sony snatched up the license from Marvel when Marvel was gasping for life over a decade ago. This is a long, interesting story that is probably best left for another time. But when Marvel was on its deathbed years and years and years ago, hard to think now, back when DC was the go-to place if you need Batman and Superman movies, Marvel was cheap and easy. And basically there was a fire sale. Fox bought lots of licenses like X-Men and Daredevil and Deadpool. Sony bought Spider-Man. I don't know if they bought anything else, and the rest, no one really cared about. Nobodies like Iron Man, Thor. I mean, who figures, right? Avengers, who cares? But Sony's entire Columbia Pictures institution was based all around the Spider-Man franchise, to the point where the most lucrative things that Sony had were all based on Spider-Man. Even the PlayStation 3, Ben, you know this one, the PlayStation 3 console, the font of the console was Spider-Man font. It was if you bought a PlayStation 3, you got Spider-Man movies on Blu-ray. It was all Spider-Man. And then something happened. They rebooted it. And the Spider-Man franchise has gone downhill. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And you are correct that there is a bit of joining of Marvel and Sony. But you're incorrect about one thing, and I have to bring this up. because that deal they made with Spider-Man years and years ago was very lucrative, but it had a caveat that if Sony stops making Spider-Man movies on the regular, they lose the franchise. There's no way Sony's going to lose the franchise. So that's why they pumped out these mediocre, crappy Spider-Man movies. However, under Disney/Marvel's tutelage, there's now going to be a combining of the Sony Spider-Man movie, the new Spider-Man movie franchise, with the existing Marvel, what you call the Marvel Universe, and that's why you see Spider-Man inside this Captain America and presumably inside the upcoming Avengers films. And not only that, you will see Robert Downey Jr. in the new Spider-Man film. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm really disappointed because you remember the rumor that who was supposed to be the bad guy in the new, I think it's called Spider-Man Homecoming is the name of the film. It was supposed to be Michael Keaton.
Oh.
But I guess he dropped out. So that's really sad. But wouldn't that have been really cool to see Michael Keaton as a bad guy? But anyway, but the new movie will be released by Sony, but it'll be in conjunction with Marvel. So technically it's still a Sony movie. Sony is the Charlton Heston of superhero movies from their cold dead Spider-Man hands.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay.
Like I knew that Sony was obviously going to be involved because like they didn't sell back the rights or anything like that. But I thought that they're working very, very closely with Marvel to make sure that Spider-Man, just like there's a Thor movie, just like there's an Iron Man movie, just like there's any of these main characters in the Avengers, there will be correlating movies with Spider-Man now.
They're splicing Spider-Man in, but what's so fascinating about the whole thing is that it's still a Sony film. And that's really cool because that reminds me, and Craig, you probably know this better than I do because you are ancient, is that back in the old days of the 60s and 50s, studios would often team up and do these cross promotions. And in some ways, it's almost like the comic book world itself, where you'd have like Superman versus Spider-Man or whatever. I mean, this is really sad because Spider-Man is a Marvel character, but he's not owned by Disney the way the rest of the Marvel franchise is owned by Disney. And to that point, neither is Deadpool or X-Men, and we still have X-Men movie coming out. And the reason this is important is because the Deadpool movie, which was huge, by the way, I don't know if anybody knows this, I don't know if you know this, Ben, the Deadpool movie, an R-rated low-budget superhero movie based on a nobody, no-name superhero, comparatively, made more money than Batman versus Superman. Isn't that amazing? But,
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, huge. So
great,
check this.
Great word of mouth.
Go or no mouth, or Merc with a mouth. No, kidding. But what's interesting is that the Deadpool franchise the film franchise is related to the X-Men franchise, and in the X-Men movie franchise, according to all the comic book nerds that I don't associate with, because I'm just kidding, I love them. The character of Quicksilver is related to Magneto. And he's a main character in the X-Men movies. But in the Marvel movies, which are owned by Disney, there's a completely different Quicksilver that's not related to the X-Men. So this is what happens when the franchises don't play nice. And what Disney and Sony are doing are consolidating and sort of remerging these things back under one roof. And you're probably going to have the best presentation of Spider-Man ever. I have great hope for the movie. But remember, Sam Raimi, the director of Evil Dead, created the Spider-Man movie franchise, and he's a visionary.
Yeah, he did with Tobey Maguire. He was the first, Yeah,
and there's an argument to me. You could make the argument that despite not being the first, this whole comic book movie renaissance really started with the original Spider-Man movie. There are some people who might say X-Men, but not really. It's the Spider-Man was the first huge, gigantic, colossal, death-defying blockbuster that basically we see every couple months now. So we'll see. I think the new costume looks great, and you got to admit, Ben, Robert Downey Jr. had the funniest line in that Civil War trailer with Underoos. So we'll see.
What was the line in the trailer? What did he say?
Underoos.
Underoos. Okay.
The name of underwear. So.
Yeah, because what 5-year-old kid doesn't have a pair of Spider-Man underwear?
It's for and if anybody here remembers the movie Charlie's Angels 2, I'll just say that. I will leave that to you to look up Charlie's Angels 2 and get my reference point, but it's very not safe for radio.
Okay then.
Okay then.
And just to kind of wrap up movies here in the beginning, keep it all kind of in its own little corner. The only movie opening up this weekend that personally I would like to see, well, and of course we're going to talk about Ratchet and Clank here in a second. I didn't even know that came out this weekend, but Keanu as well.
Oh, Keanu, yeah. That's with the comedy team. What's her
Key
name?
and Peele.
Key and Peele.
Peele. Yeah, exactly.
And I love the fact that Keanu Reeves, he gave the best spoiler to Us Weekly or one of those magazines that like Keanu really isn't like, if you look through the credits, he is the voice of the cat. You know, that doesn't really spoil too much, but he is the voice of the cat in Keanu, because the movie is named Keanu, and without even knowing it, Keanu kind of gave away that little spoiler when he gave an interview saying, yeah, a couple months ago, someone offered me a bunch of money to do voiceover work for a cat, and I was like, yeah, I'll definitely do that. So, Keanu plays the cat, Key and Peele play the leads, and the early reviews are, there are some lame points, but overall it looks like a solid, just all the comedy that you like from. If you like Key and Peele, you'll like the movie.
Well, I didn't realize that the cat spoke, because I didn't see that in any of the trailers. So,
so that's a double spoiler.
Yeah.
What's funny? Maybe Keanu Reeves was actually talking about Garfield 3.
Oh.
Wait, but those movies. Okay, first of all, those movies were terrible in every possible way, but they did give us one of the best Bill Murray jokes of all time in the movie Zombieland.
Yeah, right.
And Bill Murray has redeemed himself playing Baloo in The Jungle Book, which is a huge hit. And I haven't seen it yet, but everybody who's seen it seems to love it to death. So.
Right. I hear it's beautifully animated, and the voice actors, like, you never think Christopher Walken as giant King Gorilla, but I guess it works.
Mafioso orangutan, but and he sings. So, but what's funny? Jon Favreau directed Jungle Book, and he also is the one who directed and basically helped restart this Marvel thing with Iron Man. From what I understand, he's actually back on the Marvel movies now. He's going to be a producer for the upcoming Avengers films.
Is Jon Favreau the actor who plays the bodyguard for Iron Man?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Exactly. All right.
He's a very talented guy all around. He's a fantastic director, and I've said this on the show before. But if for those of you who sort of block out my nasal voice, then what you need to do is go on Netflix and watch the movie Chef. It is a low-budget movie with Jon Favreau about him cooking tamales, and is one of the best movies he's ever done, and it's a lot of fun.
I like Cowboys and Aliens.
It's a low-budget.
He directed Cowboys and Aliens too, as I recall.
We don't remember that movie.
Yes, but he did direct.
No, there's no proof for that. You're lying. You're making it up. Yeah, low-budget movie without cowboys, without Indiana Jones, without James Bond, just him, a food truck, tamales, and a family drama, and Dustin Hoffman as quote-unquote the bad guy.
Can I infer from you that you did not like Cowboys and Aliens, the movie?
I don't know what you're talking about. You see, you keep mentioning this movie, but that doesn't exist. It's like Ghostbusters Part 4. It doesn't exist.
I believe in the scientific psychological culture we call this trauma-induced amnesia. Not live here, so
it didn't happen. I don't know. I mean, wait a minute. I just referenced it happening. So no.
So yeah, so there's that. There's and then the last movie that is also going to tie in with one of our talking points here today on the show is, of course, Ratchet and Clank. And many of you know Ratchet and Clank from, I think they got the first game either on the PS1 or the PS2. But correct me, please correct me if I'm wrong. But I know a lot. Like I was always I always had an Xbox, and I never really had any Ratchet and Clank games, so. Not the biggest fan, but the games were crazy nostalgic. Millennials are all like, "Oh wow, that's the game I played forever. I love that game. I love that series," and now they have a movie about it to capitalize on nostalgia.
It's funny because we talked about Sony for a second here. Sony's been restructuring the entire company because the last 10 years have not been nice to Sony. They've seen a total collapse of pretty much every industry they've been in. Total collapse. So they've been consolidating. And I believe it's Kaz Hirai, the leader of the PlayStation division, is now the leader of Sony itself. And they've moved everything over, shifted everything over, and they've consolidated on pretty much two things. Gaming, of course, with the PlayStation 4 and beyond, and film. Because Columbia Pictures is owned by Sony. We just talked about Spider-Man. one of the things that we're going to see a lot with Sony is that they've greenlit all these movies based on their franchises from the PlayStation. And Ratchet and Clank is the first big one. The next big one is coming out soon. It's the Angry Birds film, which is also released by Sony.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's ever going to happen. I know, Ben, you're wetting yourself hoping this will happen. But there's supposed to be an Uncharted film at some point. They keep promising on an Uncharted film. Frankly, I don't think they need one. They have the games. The games are movies enough. And there's an Uncharted game, I believe, coming, was it next week?
Right, yeah. But I think like the Uncharted series would so easily, like, you know, I've never heard anyone said, I really hate Indiana Jones style movies. I hope they never make another one. Like, I feel like Nathan Drake would translate so easily.
You know what's funny? Nathan Drake? Yes. And Sony, you can call me. I'll give Craig my number. No, but basically the games are movies. If you've ever played the Uncharted, they're basically a movie. You know, and there was an announcement, I think yesterday, that they've casted the new Lara Croft in the upcoming reboot of Lara Croft. And forgive me, I think her name is Vikander. I can't pronounce her name. She's the one who, I believe she just won an Oscar for The Danish Girl. She's a Swedish actress who I would have never guessed is Swedish. But she was in Ex Machina last year, and she was in Danish Girl.
Yes.
Very, very talented. And I did not think she was going to get it. I actually thought it was going to be Daisy Ridley from The Force Awakens because she looks exactly like Lara Croft.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Except, you know what I mean? And I'm old enough to remember the first go-around of this nonsense with, let's be honest here, and Ben, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but Angelina Jolie is the personification of Lara Croft, with the minus of the accent. And I like the first two Tomb Raider movies, even the second one where she punched a shark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me put that back. She punched a shark. But anyway, see, some people jump sharks, she punches. But they're going to reboot it, and we'll see what happens. And at some point, you know, you have the Warcraft movie coming out. At some point, one of these video game movies has to make money because they typically don't, and they typically all crater.
What about Warcraft? The movie?
That's another one. You know, that's directed by Duncan Jones, a.k.a. David Bowie's son.
Mm-hmm.
And Duncan Jones is a great director who's directed, let's be honest, low-budget sci-fi in the past, like Moon or I think it's The Source Code. And the trailers, I'm going to go on record here. I didn't really feel the first couple of trailers. It looked like really sweaty, bearded men, and I don't want to in tunics, and I don't really want to see that. And the CG looked mediocre. But then I saw in front of what movie? In front of Batman, they showed the new trailer for Warcraft. The CG seems to have gotten a lot better. I'm not the biggest fan of the World of Warcraft games. I know a lot of people really, really love them. They're addicted to it like cocaine. But the movie does look a lot better than it did. And I don't know anything about the story. I don't know any of these characters. But the CG looks a lot better. It looks like a big fun time. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's all going to depend on one thing. How good is the movie? How good is Ratchet and Clank? How good is Warcraft? How good is Tomb Raider? The best franchise in the world usually fails. And Ben, you're a big video gamer. How many times have you seen a video game movie expecting to like it, and they're all terrible? And for the most part, they're almost all terrible.
The video game movies do have that reputation of you have such a rich story and you have such a rich background and all that stuff that you can draw on, and then what do they? And then they put a director on it who has directed traditional movies, and then they don't pull from the source material, but they pull from their past experience of, well, in my last Hollywood blockbuster, we had the helicopter explode and the hero jump out, and in the in a video game world, you're like, that's complete wide. No, don't do that. Like they don't have a video game enthusiast directing these movies. They have Hollywood directing these movies.
Well, it's funny. The movie that came out a couple weeks ago was Hardcore Harry, which started off as a Kickstarter project where the entire film was based in first person, like a first-person shooter. Now, I haven't seen the film. I saw the little short about a year or so ago online, and I really liked it. And I know our own Carlos Menjivar, my editor at Popzara, he really, really, really liked the movie, but he acknowledged that because it follows the rules of video games. The character, the protagonist is silent. There's not a lot of story and all this. And that, to me, the most disappointment I've ever had watching a video game movie, and I've seen them all, every damn one of them. I've seen them all, and they're all terrible for the most part. The one that really got me the most was Doom. Doom was an atrocity because
I like Doom.
What a perfect
with
setup.
The Rock.
It didn't make sense, but I liked it.
With Dwayne Johnson.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's Dwayne Johnson, but the concept of them going to hell, it's just, what a simple starting point. But no, it didn't work out. So we'll see what happens, though. I mean, Ratchet and Clank, it's pretty much a cartoon series, and like you said, I'm glad you mentioned this, Ben. By the way, there's a lot of people who didn't grow up with Saturday morning cartoons, like I and Craig. Back in the days of the talkies, because you come from the 5 cent Nickelodeons, but you didn't grow up with Saturday morning cartoons. You grew up with video games, and yeah, I agree with you. I'm not the biggest fan of Ratchet and Clank as a platformer, but they are very funny. They're very well written. They're well acted. And I looked at the trailer in the theater. It looks exactly like the video game. So we'll give it a pass. I don't know if I'll see it in the theater, but I'll probably catch it on whatever format it comes home on.
Right. The reviews are, kind of leaning towards this is mainly a kids-oriented thing because, Ratchet and Clank definitely has an audience, that's very, slapstick at times and has very cute characters and that kind of thing. So they're saying that it kind of skews young. If you're going out there, going out for a night drinking and decide, hey, me and my 20s and 30s buddies are going to go see the new Ratchet and Clank movie, it's going to be awesome.
Well,
You're probably going to be disappointed.
It's funny you mentioned that because there's a movie coming out from Seth Rogen and his usual crew, and it's an animated film, and I think it's called Sausage Party or something with sausage.
Oh, yes.
And I remember if you watch the trailer for this, it looks like an innocuous kids movie, and then halfway through it changes to this hardcore R-rated thing. There are going to be so many parents that are going to go see, hey, 2 tickets for a Sausage Fest, Sausage Party, and I think that's what you get for not paying attention to the rating.
Sausage Fest or Sausage Party is it's very Pixar in its animation, but then it's about like the secret lives of food. What could be wrong about that? And then it turns into a slasher film, and it's awesome.
It does. The trailer looks very funny, and I like Seth Rogen sometimes. And Seth Rogen for me is kind of like Keanu Reeves. Going back to him, like Keanu Reeves made a deal with the devil. Every other movie will be good. So Keanu Reeves will be in one really good movie like John Wick or The Matrix or Speed, but then in the interim comes really crappy films. So I think we just had John Wick. So by the law of averages, Keanu can't be that good. Maybe it'll break the spell. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, that's Ratchet and Clank. Obviously more targeted towards kids, but I think when it finally makes its way to pay-per-view, Netflix, Hulu, what have you, I'll probably be watching that one as well. But yeah, I think that's movies for the day. That only took us half an hour, the first half hour of the show. That's impressive.
I'm sorry, but I used to keep confusing Seth Rogen with Seth MacFarlane because I guess they both.
They're both vulgar, except only one's a legitimate butthole.
Yeah, but when you have like three well-received Fox cartoons, I think you're allowed to kind of be a little arrogant.
Yeah.
Well, 2 got canceled.
What was it?
Everyone gets canceled.
3 and 3 if you count Family Guy.
A million different ways to die in the West. I mean that tanked.
Okay, I will give Ben some credit here. The review, yes, A Million Ways to Die in the West tanked, and by the way, for the record, it was garbage in every way. But I liked Ted, and you know what? I actually saw Ted 2, despite the fact that everyone said it was terrible. Ted 2 was funny. I don't know what people were smoking, but Ted 2 is legitimately funny. No one else agrees with me. I don't care. It was better than A Million Ways to Die in the West. It had some really funny jokes. I like Seth MacFarlane, by the way. I don't care if he's a butthole. I don't care what the idiot said a few minutes ago. But I like Seth MacFarlane. But he's an acquired taste. You can't have Cocoa Puffs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Right.
But every once in a while, Cocoa Puffs is what you want.
Mm.
Yeah, he definitely has that certain. Honestly, almost everything he does, if you've seen enough Family Guy, you say, "Oh, that's just like that one time," and then you go off into your own little flashback that he does.
He's a one-note comedian, but that note sometimes you really want to. That's all you want.
For sure.
I did not see Ted 2 because again, my wife and I went to see Ted in the movie theaters. We actually enjoyed it. It was a terrific movie. But on your recommendation, I'm sure Ted 2 will be coming to one of the.
I don't want to spoil it for you.
Yeah.
But there's an actress in Ted 2 named Amanda Seyfried, And Hollywood has been trying to push her to be popular for about 10 years now. It's not going to happen. But she's got really weird looking eyes. And Ted 2 makes a joke about the eyes that I can't repeat on the radio, but it's very funny. And in some ways, I think Ted 2 is actually funnier than the first one. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. I guess that talks about my taste in film, but whatever. Schindler's List was a masterpiece. But you know what? Sometimes you want Schindler's List, sometimes you want Ted. So.
Yeah. I can never go see Schindler's List. I just couldn't bring myself to see it.
The subject matter is a little touchy.
Yeah, I couldn't. Just couldn't.
A little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, I've seen similar films. I just, just didn't want to watch them. But anyway, that aside, we're at the bottom of the hour break, and when we come back, we're going to start doing some tech news, including TiVo. This was just announced today. It's going to be acquired by Rovi. And what does that mean? I mean, we're talking one of the pioneers of the DVR. Got some interesting things happening with that, and we're going to continue doing technology news with Nate Evans, managing editor of Popzara. We're going to break, and then we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Sometimes disaster strikes. Data can be lost due to many different reasons. Accidental reformatting, power spikes, virus attacks. Zero Assumption Recovery provides a suite of highly effective and thorough data recovery software for Windows operating systems. ZA is suitable for home users and small businesses who need a powerful data recovery solution for Windows and Linux file systems.
Go to z-a-recovery.com.
Sometimes disaster strikes. Data can be lost due to many different reasons. Accidental reformatting, power spikes, virus attacks. Zero Assumption Recovery provides a suite of highly effective and thorough data recovery software for Windows operating systems. ZA is suitable for home users and small businesses who need a powerful data recovery solution for Windows and Linux file systems.
Go to z-a-recovery.com.
And so the T-Rex evolved into the T-Rump.
Hi, Marty Winston with a News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America. This time, the Emerson Sensi Wi-Fi connected thermostat with some good things to recommend it. If your wiring doesn't have a C or common wire, many times that happens if there are batteries in the thermostat, that's okay. This one doesn't need it. It also has a unique passcode that comes in the box that you use in Wi-Fi setup and, again, to use its app. So its security is better than most. It lets us set the heating and cooling offsets in the fan mode. It even offers to adjust its temperature reading to match the old thermostat or independent thermometers. Ours agreed with 2 precision digital thermometers. You can set schedules for more relaxed offsets if that's appropriate. So bottom line, the Emerson Sensi Wi-Fi thermostat turns out to be a lot cooler than others we've tested and now saves us the trouble of manually switching between heating and cooling modes. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show, 347-884-8881. That's 347-884-8881. We'll get you on and get you through. And I know, Ben, you know that I know that you know that long before Vistaprint asked me to tell everyone about them, your mom and I have been using Vistaprint for years, making business cards, having the Computer America logo, placed on your polo shirt that you wore when you went out to the CES convention. Even printing a business card for our personal lives with our home address and our home phone number. We give them out to friends. It's very useful. In fact, Vistaprint offers tons of custom products for home and office needs. And Vistaprint, get this, absolutely guarantees you're going to love their products every time, or they will make it right. In fact, they'll give you 500 business cards for just $9.99 when you enter my promo code Craig at the checkout. You got to do that. My promo code Craig. Just go to the website at vistaprint.com and you'll see how easy it is to design your own stuff using their web-based custom design service. Remember to use my promo code Craig and save up to 50%. 50% over the regular pricing. Don't wait. Go to vistaprint.com and order today.
Yep, and remember everyone, that's Craig, not Ben. Ben will actually increase by 50% if you use that promo code. So, at the checkout count, if you use Ben, you will be hurting. So, Craig. Anywho, so welcome back to the Computer America Show. We are here both hours with Nathan Evans, and from Popzara, we are we just finished up movies in the first half hour, moving on to something a little bit more tech news related, and TiVo, obviously a huge name in in the industry of time shifting television because they were really the first. I mean, who doesn't? Even if you don't own a TiVo now, you still in your head make the boop 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 boop. You still make the little bubbles whenever you pause or fast forward or rewind.
Yeah, it hasn't.
They were the first ones, and they were the best ones for a long time. But Rovi somehow managed to acquire much, much more money and now acquire them. So, Nathan, or Craig.
Yeah, they had that distinctive little plop sound, bloop sound that they make, and it was kind of unique.
Very distinctive.
The only thing I don't, I wish they would fix the box. It's like warped, it won't sit flat on the table.
Yeah, I think they made it like that.
Okay. It was intentional. Actually, it looks really cool. But yeah, you're seeing less and less set-top boxes independent because so many of the companies that provide the television services, the charters, the Comcast, the cable companies, the satellite companies, they all have their own DVRs.
Well, that's obviously about to change as well. I mean, the FCC just had a ruling, a couple weeks ago, saying that they were looking into making or opening up the set-top box. So, traditionally, if let's say you had, through any cable company, I don't want to name anyone in particular, but if you wanted an aftermarket DVR, you kind of had to route it through, you still had to have their set-top box and then route it through your DVR and then, kind of access it through your DVR, but still have the traditional set-top box. The FCC, a couple weeks ago, said they were looking into actually opening up that market so that you could return or not even order one from any company that you may subscribe to, and you could just use a TiVo or Roku, a whatever you wanted in lieu of a cable company's set-top box.
Well,
and that's going to open the market a bit.
Well, you see, because traditionally a lot of these, especially the smaller cable companies, now the really big ones are like a DirecTV, they're pretty darn good, I have to admit. But some of the smaller ones are using these older technology boxes that really fall far from providing what today's technologies can offer, and you're locked into using their equipment unless of course you buy a TiVo or something, kind of route it first through them and then through the TiVo, which is really awkward a way to do it. So I'm glad to see that someone stepping in and saying, no, you don't have to buy the provider's box anymore. You can use whatever you like, which is I think that's the direction that we're heading.
Yeah, Nate, why did this story catch your eye?
Well, for all the reasons you guys talked about and more. Thank you for bringing up the FCC. Although I want to diverge a tiny little bit real quick because in this age of terrorism and explosions and low economies and high unemployments, even President Obama got into the action and apparently this is a big deal. I actually think this is a little bit of collusion and a little bit of cronyism, but it's a good thing. I'm not against cronyism. I'm not against that at all. The reason you see this Rovio TiVo story is simply put, as Ben said, there's probably going to be an opening of the market for third-party DVRs and set-top boxes, and it makes a lot of sense because there is some name brand recognition with TiVo. But the problem is TiVo has always struggled to become popular, and part of the reason is they've been phased out of the market because of what you said, Craig. You're sort of forced into buying the cable company boxes. Now, the plus side of that is that if you're forced to rent a box for, I think, what is it, $5 a month in most cable, sometimes 10, is that if you have a problem with the box, you bring it back, they give you a new box, they switch it out. And the service is usually pretty good. The bad side is the technology is usually ancient.
Yeah.
And now I forget, Ben, you're a gamer. Do you have Xbox or PlayStation?
Xbox One.
Okay, on the back of your Xbox One is a pass-through cable for HDMI. when they announced the Xbox One, there was a big provision that it was going to work well with your cable box, that it was going to be basically a third-party DVR like a TiVo. And Microsoft built a lot of software into that. It was a complete and utter failure. It didn't work. And even Nintendo got into it with, especially in Japan, where they actually had like a DVR like app for the Wii and the Wii U. Sony, I don't believe Sony ever really got into it as much as they wanted to, but basically every effort to sort of circumvent this monopoly by the cable companies has failed, and they failed and failed and failed. Now, Craig, I know you were back in the age of the Stone Age. No, but do you remember a time when you couldn't even buy your own telephone? You had to rent a telephone from
That's
AT&T.
right. That's right. Or from Bell. From Bell.
Yeah. Yes, and things have opened up. Just the other day, about 2 weeks ago, I got fed up with paying for my cable modem, so I went out and bought one on Amazon. And the money I spent up front, which is really cheap, by the way, has saves me about over $100 a year. Mm-hmm. Now I can do that because there's been a consolidation of the technology called DOCSIS 3. So I don't have to buy or rent a cable modem from my cable company. I can buy one. And I believe, from what I understand, and I have heard rumors that this is basically a Google-oriented thing, because Google, there has been a push towards centralizing and decentralizing the cable companies and the way these boxes are going. Google has made a big push for this. They've been doing this with Google Fiber. They've been doing this with telecommunications provider, with Android TV and all this. But the concept, Ben, would be to create sort of a centralized API that basically would become the template for third-party manufacturers to create DVR set-top boxes. Now, the good thing is this would allow for lots more competition in the market. The bad thing is that it would probably create some confusion for consumers who, frankly, probably will treat their DVR boxes like crap. So, but again, I'm all for it because I'm a big capitalist. I like choice in the market. I like the idea of going to a store and buying my own equipment and not having to rent it, and all the benefits and negatives that come with it. Now, that being said, I don't have cable. I'm a cord cutter. Mm-hmm. I have Netflix, I have Amazon, I have this. Now, I want to be clear about this. Okay, both of you guys have Netflix. If you have Netflix in your living room, or if you have Netflix on your phone, or Netflix on your Wii, or Netflix on every device you possibly have, you start watching The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt in the living room. You come in, you go back to the basement, you turn on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt in the downstairs bathroom on your iPhone, it picks right up. You don't need a DVR anymore. A lot of what this online streaming services and cloud supercomputing have done has really made a lot of what DVRs do irrelevant. And if you go on torrent sites like Kick-Ass Torrents or whatever, you'll notice that every new TV show is on there. One of the things that DVRs do is that DVRs record onto a hard drive. And a lot of people have circumvented the copyright protection, and basically they record a show on their DVR and they dump it online. I promise you, one of the provisions of this unified API will be a way to circumvent that and try to stop people from dumping television shows onto the internet. They'll probably fail at it because they've never been able to do it.
Right.
But this will be interesting because for too long we've mandated that certain types of telecommunications companies in this country have justifiable monopolies, and the cable company remains the single largest third-party monopoly in this country. There is almost no choice when it comes to cable internet. If you're in a big metropolitan area, you have one cable internet. And a lot of times they blocked out certain things. Where I live, I have one choice. Wherever you live, you probably have one choice. And they get around it. They get around it by having like different providers like AT&T or a satellite. But generally speaking, it's a provinciality thing where you can only have one. So if anytime there's a little more choice, is a little better.
I mean, in our area, for example, we have Uverse, AT&T Uverse. There's DirecTV, obviously, because that's available everywhere. Xfinity is another that we have choice of.
So Comcast.
AT&T owns DirecTV.
Okay.
And yeah, and you have but you probably you probably saw that big story about what was it, Roadrunner? Who does Roadrunner? Roadrunner, Comcast, whatever. But you usually don't see two in the area.
No.
And there's been a lot of talk about not allowing these cable companies to merge because it would create a super monopoly. But generally speaking, the monopoly laws, these companies are exempt from them for some reason. and that has created a lot of confusion and a lot of anti-competition. So that's where you have things like, for example, you have Fios from Verizon, you have satellite from DirecTV or Dish Network. By the way, from what I understand, AT&T is going to start selling DirecTV service through the internet without the satellite.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens there. Again, you have Google Fiber. Google has been laying down a lot of pipe trying to break into this market. They want to become the new AT&T eventually as part of their conglomerate. We'll see what happens. So, and I think the next pipeline for them is going to be basically giving free internet to low-income people as a way to get in there. So, no, this is going to be interesting. I mean,
yeah. The only thing I wanted to add was that we definitely see. I mean, a lot of our listeners I know, they have one in the area, and unfortunately, if you are rural, then you may have zero, and then have to pay one potential a bunch of connection fees just to get it. So I mean, there really isn't that much competition, and where there is competition, I mean, it's definitely winning. There was let's see, it was Time Warner was just bought by Charter for like $78 billion. So that's two companies that are now one, just like AT&T and DirecTV. So that's one. That's just a little bit less competition right there. I mean, it's not like cable and internet access really isn't getting better. It seems to be getting a little bit worse, and then hopefully soon it will get better.
well, I know that. I disagree with you. I think it's actually cable internet has gotten much, much, much better. Over the last 15 years, I remember having to rent a giant cable modem that looked like a subwoofer for a booty car from the 80s, and it would cost me over $100 a month, and I think I got 1 megabit down, and this was in 2000. And now I can pay $20 a month and get 100 megabits down. I mean, the service quality has definitely gone up. And when it comes to consolidation, I think when you have all these little disparate little ISPs being forced together, I mean, the fact is that we're still primarily using fiber optics that was laid down by AT&T in the 80s for cable. And I think they're hitting their theoretical limits about what fiber optics can do. So you have companies like Google, you have companies like Comcast, and again AT&T, who's never really went anywhere, and they're spending billions of dollars of laying down new cable internet connections, wireless communications, all this stuff. And I want to be clear, is that a lot of people compare the United States unfavorably to countries in Europe. The United States is a giant landmass, and we have people spread all over the place. You have people in Timbuktu, you have people in the middle of nowhere, and I won't say who it is because I don't want to embarrass him, but I do have an editor for Popzara who moved about 2 years ago to the middle of nowhere, and the only internet he could get was satellite, which was really expensive, and the service was mediocre at best. And thankfully, he's survived past that. But for those couple months that he was there, he was tortured because you go from really really nice Comcast internet to garbage satellite when that's the only thing you can get. But the fact is, he could get it.
Well, haven't they improved them? It was DirecTV. It was Hughes. I think they were using.
Oh yes, I mean the quality was there, but I mean the price was 10 times the amount.
Ah, okay.
And you just heard, for example, Comcast up their data limits to 1 terabyte. I mean, internet is getting better and it's getting cheaper. There's no doubt about it. And I got to be honest with you, Ben, I'm not against monopolies for the most part. I think sometimes when you have 10 little fiefdoms and no one can agree on a format, no one can agree on anything, you have one giant company come in and they push things forward. And the history of innovation is usually dictated not by the individuals, but dictated by one company with the brass balls enough to move things forward. And we may not, as Americans, we may be sort of programmed to dispel against monopolies, but generally speaking, they tend to work pretty well, at least in the beginning. And right now, there's a big push to sort of get us away from cable internet, the limitations of old cable internet into new cable internet. So we'll see what happens. So the cycle continues. Monopoly, antitrust.
I would be on your side if we didn't cover a story every other week about how Chattanooga, Tennessee wanted to build their own municipal broadband service that the taxpayers wanted overwhelmingly, but then legislation backed by the lobbyists of the cable industry said no, the city cannot get into a private industry and muscle us out. I mean, they were providing a
Oh no, I
subpar
agree with you. I
service.
agree
Yeah.
with you. I live in a city where we have one choice, and there's been multiple competitors. I live in Lawrence, Kansas, and we have multiple competitors of people trying to offer gigabit internet, and the city has pre-existing negotiations with the cable conglomerates, and they won't allow it. But I don't think that has to do with necessarily the cable companies. I think it has to do with the municipalities and the local jurisprudence of basically being snookered into thinking that they have to be anti-competitive. It's one thing to say Comcast can come in your neighborhood and spend the money and innovate. It's another thing to say that only Comcast can come in your neighborhood and innovate. Comcast is a really good internet provider. They've gotten a lot of flack from a lot of people, but they have basically paved the way for super fast, reliable, cheap internet more than anybody else. Now the problem is though, if you can provide really fast gigabit internet to a little neighborhood, can you scale that up to provide gigabit internet to 100,000 people, 200,000 people? The infrastructure necessary for that might be $1 billion. And a lot of people, all they think about is themselves. Oh, I can download every episode of Game of Thrones really fast. Oh, did I say that out loud? No. But right now we've talked about on the show before about 4K. When you guys were at CES, I know Craig and I were talking with some of the guests about 4K. And the requirements for distributing 4K broadband quality video are going to be immeasurably more than 1080p and all this. And you simply can't get that over traditional internet and basically have the infrastructure function the way it has been functioning. Look at Netflix. Netflix tops out for the most part at 1080p for most people, and it consumes 40% of all internet speed sometimes. It slows the internet down to a crawl because you're trying. It's like trying to drink a McDonald's milkshake through a sippy straw. You can do it, but you're going to look like a fish, and it won't be really fun. And no one will want to kiss you when you look like a flounder, except those fishophiles. But going back to it though, I mean, I'm all for this. Like I said, the I can't pronounce it. I'm all for the cycle of monopoly, anti-monopoly, monopoly. And right now we're going through an infrastructure push, and the FCC, which is I think it's run by 6 people, I believe. They seem to be the monopoly right now, where there's a very small group of people who are not elected, who are basically deciding the telecommunications regulations for an entire nation. I think there should be more of a democratic process, but instead of pushing things like net neutrality or open source boxes, they should be looking at the way private companies can afford to implement infrastructure improvements without necessarily pushing the entire cost onto the consumer. And I think in certain European countries, there's a big push for that. And I know especially in places like Japan, the Netherlands, where they have internet that's much faster than ours because of localized ISP improvements. And the United States, it's anybody's game. And frankly, that's about as truthfully as I can comment on that right now.
Yeah.
Star Fortress just sent us an email. Says I would take free internet from our Google overlords.
Well, you no more Game of Thrones for you, Star Fortress. They'll know what you're downloading. In fact, they'll know what you're thinking about downloading.
Yeah, just be in the right place, and Google does have a few programs set up where they're free. Although Houston, Texas just got their free internet nixed, but a couple other places do still have Google free internet for qualifying houses. So not
to be a curmudgeon, I'll just say one last thing about this. I am not for free internet. I'm not. I'm not even for free internet for low-income people. The concept is that once you introduce any type of a premium service for low-income people, you create an incentive for them to keep being low-income to remain on there. And I think when you look at third world nations, and you look at places that are just absolutely bombarded with charity, the consensus going in is that we're going to give this to you because of your handicap. And I don't think that's a way that for innovation to flourish. I don't know. I'm going to sound like a meanie here, like a Scrooge, but I guess I am Scrooge. So I don't know. I think innovation is proffered by massive consumption, and I don't necessarily think metering out consumption for people based on their income or based on what they call inequity. I mean, because it opens up a lot of questions about who's qualifying, who's poor, or whatnot. America remains one of the only countries in the history of the world where our poor people are overweight, yet they have smartphones. So again, it's a very confusing scenario.
Yeah, well, that is a whole other issue that I don't feel like we really want to get into.
Yeah.
So there's that, but suffice to say that internet is definitely getting better. But I think at the same time, you're right, with 4K obviously coming. There are services out there that will provide 4K television if you pay a little bit extra money. With 4K coming, the infrastructure is just required. I mean, for even for not just for entertainment, sitting at home watching television, but even for just being a productive society in a modern,
Yes.
in a modern business-oriented
don't-
world, you need fast internet connection.
And don't forget, though, when we talk about services like Netflix or Amazon providing 4K, Amazon and Netflix are not internet providers. They're internet services. And that means the impetus is on the provider to provide that throughput and provide that pipeline. And when you have an ISP who might be a small provider, Ben, who might be, grandma's cookies ISP, a hometown ISP where, good old fashioned values, when they can't provide 4K quality pipeline, but the FCC requires them to because they're not allowed to throttle. When you have one person sucking up all the bandwidth, but they're required to do this, they don't have the means to compete with a Comcast. And it's not necessarily because they're not supposed to. They're just grandma's cookies ISP. But it stifles innovation in a way that a lot of people who don't understand how this stuff works is very stifling. And I think I think we would do a lot better as a society if we were to rely more on traditional methods of innovation, that is supply and demand. That if you as a gamer need a fast internet connection and want to do 4K, then you should pay more for it. And if you don't need it, you should pay less. And I think when you have a tiered internet in that sort of way, then you basically can allocate resources to where you need them the most. But not everybody needs a semi-automatic truck to drive to work, and not everybody needs one of those little rice burner machines to deliver supplies to Walmart. There are different case uses, and there's not one size fits all. I hate to quote Steve Jobs, but I will. Cars and trucks, people, and I think the same works for internet load as well.
Well, you make some good points. The initial knee-jerk reaction, when you think of charity and people who are underprivileged, you want to offer them, offer them something, and I think that's where that kind of comes from, and it might be perceived as being, screwed. Well, where does he come off saying that people who are underprivileged can't have the internet? We want to make it available for everybody, and so I think that's where that's coming from.
I'm all for internet, low income internet. But we already have it. You're already paying for it. Next time you get your cell phone bill, your cable bill, read it. No one ever reads those things. There's something called universal service charge, where you're already paying for low-income internet. You're already paying for low-income cell phones. You're already doing it. It hasn't worked because redistribution of internet services based on income levels, it creates an inequity system that's perpetual because you're creating a permanent subclass of people who, in order to qualify, need to remain low income. And that never works. It's never worked in the history of the world. It will never work. You need to incentivize people to get out of that particular thing. But if you're giving them everything all the time, then there's no incentive. And if you can provide me some economic information or any type of historical documentation or case study where that's worked, let me know. I'd really like to see it. But it's never happened. And so that's not to say that low-income people shouldn't have internet. They should, and we should do everything we can do to help get them on there. But there needs to be a need for it. I don't want to provide someone internet if they're just going to download movies with it. I think people need internet for work. They definitely need it for school. They definitely need it for their jobs in some cases. But again, like Ben said, it's a touchy subject. It's probably not the right venue for it.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, there's there's always Redbox and.
You joke about that, but those are so popular. And
I was just at one of the places that had a Redbox, and there was like a line.
There's a line. There's a queue. There's a literal like not just a Netflix queue of movies waiting for you, but of a people queue waiting for movies. Yes. It is insane.
They had a Redbox rep there standing. I think he was more like the service guy, and people were talking to him, and he was making movie recommendations as to which movie they should buy from Redbox, and he's just the vendor. He's just the guy, the that services the machines. And
People love Redbox, and you know what? I would only have one rule for Redbox: is that people are not allowed to park in front of grocery stores or park in front of doors. You should have to park across the lot and walk to the Redbox instead of blocking all the exits. But no, I mean Redbox is popular, very popular.
Again, Fortress says, if it gets me anything faster than 6 megabytes, that's not Charter. I'm for it. Even if Google charged, I pay 30 and 40.
Well, triple that, Fortress. It's usually $100. No, but no, I mean you pay for what you get for it. And 6 megabits, that sounds like he's on DSL.
Yeah, but $30-40 for 6 megabits doesn't even comply with the new FCC standards of what is considered broadband. So he is technically not even broadband.
You were broadband yesterday. You're not broadband anymore because we changed the definition of. I think it's 18 megabits now for broadband or something.
18 or 20, something like that.
Yeah. I had 6 megabits for a long time, and I was relatively happy with it until I got something better, and now I'm not satisfied with 6 megabits anymore. So join the club.
All right, we're at the top of the hour, so we're going to take a quick break. Don't forget we have our social media winner of the week coming up as well in this upcoming hour. Ben and I are talking to Nathan Evans. Nate Evans, managing editor of Popzara magazine. We're going to continue on. We got lots more stories to talk about. We're kind of all over the road today because it's Friday. We're going to be right back with more right after, well, nothing really, just this introduction. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting live, it's the only national radio talk show on computers to air every weeknight. Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. The first hour's behind us, but there's still more of tech news, tech talk, and your phone calls. We're being beamed nationwide at ComputerAmerica.com. You got computer problems? Bring them on. You're listening to Computer America. Computers run the world, and we run computers. Call us or send us an email to live@computeramerica.com.
Hello and welcome into Hour 2 of the nation's longest-running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers. This is the Computer America Show, and I am your host, Craig Crossman.
And I am your soon-to-be host, Ben.
and we...
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. No. We continue on here with our show. Nathan Evans, managing editor of Popzara magazine, continues on with us. Again, 347-884-8881, or head over to ComputerAmerica.com. The upper right-hand corner of any page, it says submit your question. Just click it. It's a link, and you can type in your question there. Allows you to interact with us. But we continue on. As I mentioned, we're going to have our social media winner of the week coming up probably in the next half hour. We'll be doing that. And so... Nate, are we pretty much finished with the TiVo story? Because I think we're going to move.
I've been finished with TiVo since 2003.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Well, then we've got lots more to talk about here. I want to talk a little bit about the Nintendo NX. There's always been, rumors about this. It's going to be a brand new concept. It's going to be. Now, I have to say, I'm not as much into the gaming or the Nintendo or gaming news as much as Ben is, but I was watching. It was one of the. It was Conan I was watching, and he had Seth
the Barbarian.
Yeah, Conan. Conan. Yes, exactly. He had Seth Rogen on, promoting this new movie with the sororities. They get a house, and the sorority moves in next door, and all the kind of problems that causes. Anyway, they were demonstrating a Nintendo game that was supposedly, this was like a first unveiling of it, and instead of having the standard game controllers, they were holding what looked like little miniature steering wheels, not connected to anything. You just held them up in the air, and you would just turn them left and right, and they were playing this racing game, this next Mario racing game with it. I don't know if that was a precursor to, because they're always saying the Nintendo NX is going to have something brand new that we've never seen before. So I assume that was not something brand new that's ever been seen before, or was it? I'm not sure.
I think they were playing Mario Kart 8, which came out last year.
Yeah, Mario Kart 8. Yes, that's
very good game, by the way. Yeah. I think Conan, by Crom, just kidding. Conan Conan has a thing, I think it's called Clueless Gamer, and it's always funny, and he's very funny when he does it. It's very topical, and I would advise everyone to go look up his great Smash Brothers bit where he basically laid into some clueless people. Very, very funny stuff. Very not safe for radio. I wish I could talk about it more, but it's very funny. You can find the whole thing online, and Conan O'Brien is very funny. But no, I actually just recorded a podcast yesterday with some editors about this because a story came out either yesterday or the day before that Nintendo's financial report came out, and it was not very good news for the Big N, and who had a very bad year when it comes to hardware. And there was I don't know if you guys talked about it, but there was a story about Apple the other day, how they quote unquote missed the deadline, and oh, woe is me. No, Nintendo would love to be suffering like Apple is.
Right.
Yeah, you're talking about a total collapse of hardware sales for Nintendo, and
it was down like 60%, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was terrible. And don't misread that too much. That Nintendo still hasn't lost any money. They're sitting on more cash than Sony. But the fact is that the demand for Nintendo consoles has gone down considerably. And I forget if we've talked about the specific thing on the show before, but we've talked about Miitomos. We've talked about all of this sort of stuff that's coming in from Nintendo and how they're going to innovate and sort of maintain relevance in an industry that may be leaving them behind. But when it comes to hardware, when it comes to software, there's no question, as you saw in Conan, people want Nintendo games. People want Mario. They want Mario Kart. They want Smash Brothers. They want Pokemon. They want Donkey Kong. They want Zelda. They want Star Fox. They want all this stuff. The question is, how are they going to play it? And if they don't have the hardware, they can't play the game. Mm-hmm. And Ben, you and I have talked about this too. The concept a lot of people have prematurely said is that Nintendo should go third party or even second party, which means that they would no longer produce their own hardware. They would sort of become subservient to a company like Microsoft or Sony or whatever, or PC or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen anytime soon for a couple of reasons. One, it would be stupid, and second, it would be suicide. The most common comparison is that they should become like Sega and become second, third party. Well, didn't work out for Sega. And another reason is that Nintendo is still the preeminent premium game development company in the world. They happen to be the only last legitimate major Japanese game developer out there too. But the thing is that when we looked at the financials that they revealed, I believe that the number of 3DS consoles that they've sold is about 58 million, give or take. Yeah, give or take. But the number of Wii U consoles has been about 12 million. Now, when you consider that Microsoft has struggled to sell Xbox Ones, they've sold about, 20? But Sony's had gangbusters. They've sold over 40 million PlayStation 4s. And I've always commented, Ben, that Sony and Microsoft have done decently considering there's not a lot of really good software for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. There's been no breakout hits for any console. Nothing. It's been nothing like the last 10 years, which saw really, really good franchises come out for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Microsoft has even struggled to sell Halo games. It's not a good time for software for these companies. It's a good time for predictable ports like Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. Mm-hmm. But new franchises have not sold well, except for Nintendo. Now, despite the fact that the Wii U is not sold very well, the games sell pretty well. So go figure. And do you remember the days of the Nintendo 64 or even the GameCube, where the GameCube didn't sell anywhere as well as the PlayStation, and the Nintendo 64 didn't sell anywhere as good as the PlayStation? But Nintendo sold massive amounts of games. They've shifted massive amounts of software, and they're still doing it for the Wii U, even though the Wii U is not selling that well. And so what we're going to see, Nintendo has basically put an end to the Wii U, which basically means at this point, don't buy one brand new. Sorry, just don't do it. It's not. Wait for a discount. Like I was telling people, wait for a discount. Find one at a flea market. Find one on eBay from Pakistan or whatever. But get it, and you'll have about a year's worth of really quality, really good games to play while you're waiting for the next Nintendo console, which is going to come out March 2017.
Now, what do you think it's going to be?
I think it's going to be something. And I mean, who knows with Nintendo? Who knows? It could be a wristwatch. It could be a mushroom. It could be a cloud computer. It could be a styrofoam cup. It could be anything.
I just hope that when they come out with their new console, it's comparable to a modern console, if not, like the specs have to be there. I think that was what hurt Wii U so bad, was that they announced it had the same specs as a 360 and a PlayStation 3, and then lo and behold, a year later it's now an outdated console
Well-
because the Xbox One and the PS4 were announced. And it's like they have to get the hardware there, or otherwise people aren't really going to be interested in investing. What I think a lot of people kind of in their minds thought, oh, that's still a last gen console. Why would I invest in
Well,
that?
The truth is that specs don't matter quite as much as you'd think. What matters most of all is the impression and the cost. Believe it or not, people will wait 2 years to buy a gaming console if there's a $50 price difference. Now, the best example I can give you this, Ben, historically, is you remember 2006 when the PlayStation 3 was announced versus the original Wii. The PlayStation 3 was $600 when it came out. The Xbox 360 at the time was $400. The Wii was $250. Now, on paper, the original Wii was nothing compared to the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation, but it was also less than half the cost, and it came with a game. And it had wireless built in, it had a lot of cool stuff, it had innovative controller, and by all accounts, the Wii was much more innovative than the Xbox or the PlayStation. It didn't have HD graphics, it didn't have really good online, but it was such a tight little package that even Netflix points to the original Wii as one of the reasons they've become so popular, because it was accessible in a way that technology wasn't. And it had Wii Sports, it had a lot of stuff, and it became the dominant console for pretty much the entire video game industry for about 4 years. It rose Nintendo to unprecedented sales figures. And people who worked at Nintendo became the richest people in Japan, and then Nintendo collapsed because they hit a certain point. And they don't have the type of third-party experience of a Sony or a Microsoft. They don't have that type of history the way that Sony and Microsoft traditionally in the last 15 years have had. Nintendo has never done well with this, Ben. They've never done well. They've always had problems with third-party companies. The only reason they had sort of a hegemonic dominance back in the 80s, because they had basically a monopoly. Go figure, there's that word again. And I don't know if you remember the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, but they had this really popular thing called the official Nintendo Seal of Quality. And for us, that said, wow, look at that quality. But for third-party companies, that meant slavery. It meant you could not create your software for a third-party company. You had to develop for Nintendo. And what Sony did is Sony allowed them to break out of that, and it allowed them a more nurturous environment of which gaming could be cheaper to manufacture, it could be cheaper to sell, and the profits would be more. And Nintendo has been terrible at this. The only thing they've ever maintained any type of semblance of professionalism has been the 3DS hardware or the DS hardware. And the Wii U is a really good example of this. Do you remember when they announced the original Wii U? They actually showed software that was running on PlayStation hardware. Because that's not the way to go. And again, if you guys are listening, it'll probably be out tonight. But I did a podcast with Corey, and we went into detail about this, and I'll give you a little taste of it right now. But my opinion has been always this: the failures of the Wii U have come down to one thing. It's Nintendo forgetting to be Nintendo. They came out with relatively nice hardware for the time that was comparable to, like you said, the PlayStation and the Xbox. It had a lot of online features which people expected, had the Call of Duty which people expected, had the games that people expected. But why bother? You already have a PlayStation. Why do you need another one? Why do you need another Xbox? You already have it. So the allure of Mario and Zelda and Star Fox was not enough for people, and people abandoned the Wii U the same way Nintendo has abandoned the Wii. Is that you simply cannot offer people a substandard second-rate experience. You need to offer them something new. You need to offer them something exciting. And frankly, we're not going to get that with Microsoft and Sony in the gaming world. Instead, we're going to get Me Too has-beens like VR that frankly nobody wants. By the way, look that up. Even the VR people have said that, yeah, we kind of overestimated VR. Because that's what everybody else is doing. Oculus is doing it, Valve is doing it, HTC is doing it, so Sony's doing it. And so, would Nintendo do VR? Nintendo's already done VR, and they failed at it. So again, when you ask me what type of console it's going to be, Craig, I don't know. I mean, you had a console that had a tablet built into its controller. The last console cycle had a motion controller. This is a company that has innovated every control mechanism since the beginning. They invented the D-pad. They invented the analog stick. They invented force feedback. They invented tablet on a controller. Nobody seemed to want it, but they did it. And they also did motion control. So who knows? I mean, maybe you have to sit on a mushroom and it'll vibrate. I don't know. Could be. Could be anything.
You're one of the first, I think, of our correspondents who has really come out and said that Because every time we talk about VR, everybody sort of has such a positive spin on it. Oh, it's going to.
Everyone's excited.
I'm not.
And you're not, So good, because I'm glad it mixes things up. I mean, we like to hear. We constantly use that. It's becoming tiresome now. The analogy of 3D TVs and how they never made it. Everyone thought it was going to be the next big thing. So I said, well, do you think that's going to happen with VR? And they went, no, it is going to be the next big thing. And you're the first correspondent to come out and said, it's not.
There was a story today, actually, about one of the heads of the VR consortium and said, we overestimated the appeal of VR. This is not going to be the year of it. Of course it's not. It's too expensive. The product is not refined. The experience is not up to par. And it's not only cost prohibitive, but it's immersion prohibitive. And so, it's not that it's not a nice technology. I don't want to get too much into it because I'm not familiar with it that much. But, you're looking at something that people have to pay several times the amount to get an inferior experience. That's like, what's more popular, strip clubs or fetish bars? At a certain point, you have to look at what people can spend their money on. And simply put, PC gaming is already niche. Ben, you would admit this. You like PC gaming, but it's niche. It's always been niche. And VR is PC-centric only, and that's even super niche. So you can't expect super niche to become mainstream. Now, I would like to see VR become familiar in libraries. I'd like to see it become familiar in colleges. I'd like to see it, but it's being pushed as a gaming mechanism, and that's going to kill it. And it's because it's prohibitive. It's not as exciting. It's not as graphically interesting. The controls aren't as accurate, and it costs too damn much. And until you get those things fixed, it just can't be successful. There's no history of something with that many detriments becoming successful.
You should see the wave of disappointment coming over his face.
It's like, well, you make a point about 3D TVs and everything. I'm not being a cynic when I say 3D TVs aren't going to succeed. It's just that, have you ever been to a Super Bowl party?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people there. And imagine buying $100 glasses for everybody at a Super Bowl party so they can watch a blurry Super Bowl. No, they don't care. Give them a beer. They just want to watch people in tights run around with a ball. And 3D TV made that prohibitive. In the same way VR makes gaming as an immersive experience prohibitive. It's not that it's not cool. It's not that it's not ready, but you've lived through these cycles, and this is the third cycle of VR. It failed the first two, and it's probably going to fail this one, mostly because the people that are pushing VR don't know what the hell they're doing. Facebook doesn't know what they're doing. Valve doesn't know what they're doing. These companies have a history of abject failures in presenting technology. Now, if Nintendo was doing VR, we'd have a different conversation. If Apple was doing it, we'd have a different conversation.
In your opinion, is there anything that these people can do so this won't happen, or is it too late?
Well, if I knew that, I'd be rich. but the fact is, it's easy for someone like me to sit on the sidelines and criticize, But you really have to go look at the history of. I don't know how we got off this topic, but you really have to go look at the history of like Oculus to realize what a scam the whole thing is. There's nothing organic about it. The whole thing was a complete farce. Palmer Luckey, the barefooted pixie, chubby pixie who quote unquote invented Oculus, he worked at a VR firm before, and the fact that they use Kickstarter as venture capital to allow Facebook to get into this. Then you have Valve getting into it with HTC. Valve, of course, scammed everybody with the SteamOS garbage boxes. These are companies that don't have your best interest at heart. These are companies that are willing to allow you, the consumer, to overpay for defective first-generation products that do not work so they can fund a second-generation product. You want my template? Look at Android boxes like Ouya that are gonna open up the market and things like this. They fail. They don't work because there's not. We just talked about this, about cable boxes, about monopolies. You need a company with a history or the wherewithal or a good business plan to introduce this stuff cheaply to the consumer, and then it becomes mass market. If VR succeeds, it'll be because Sony makes a $400 VR headset. I still think $400 is way too much. I think VR headsets should be $100. I think they should be really mass market cheap. But they're not anywhere at that point, and they're not likely to get to that point because of companies like Facebook and HTC that are overcharging, and they're discriminating people against the concept of having them. It's not that they don't want them or they don't like them, but it's so niche, and the perpetrators, the people that are actually pushing this, are scary. Every time you look at a picture of someone in VR, they look like they're on drugs, or they look like they're dazed, or they look like they've just been tortured in Afghanistan. VR does not look fun to look at. It looks horrible, and it's embarrassing. And that's not to say that the experience isn't fun. I'm sure it is. But it doesn't look like it in pictures. It looks scary, and it looks frightening. So will it catch on? I don't think so. I just don't see any proof that it will. Prove me wrong, Facebook. You clearly know what you're doing with mobile ads, but you don't seem to know what you're doing with hardware. And that's okay. I mean, even Google can't get hardware right. I mean, this is it's nothing new.
Well, of course, you need a supercomputer really to run VR as well.
Not necessarily. You could do it on a cell phone. I mean, Google was selling cardboard.
Yeah, but
VR.
I'm saying the way that way Oculus is going to be doing it, you need a pretty tricked out computer.
Cars and trucks, man. Cars and trucks. I mean, if you can introduce cheap VR to people and get them hooked on it a little bit, look, your phone didn't need to be as powerful as an Xbox 360 to run Angry Birds, or Clash of Clans, but millions of people play them because it's accessible. And if you can get people on a introductory sort of elementary VR experience, that's what they should be focusing on. But instead, they've made it so cost prohibitive by having these giant clunky VR headsets that frankly don't look comfortable at all, that are tied to mega computers so you can play games that look like PlayStation 1 games. Who wants that? Who except for tech nerds really want that experience? I don't think so. And it's but you know what I mean? But that's the way it is. Hey, I'm in the minority on my own staff.
All right.
So I'm not necessarily a cynic. I'm actually an optimist. I think this is possible. But I'll be honest with you. Like 3D TVs, there may not be a market for it in the home. There just may not be one. It may be more in society. And by the way, VR, there's Disney rides that have VR, that have had VR for 20 years. It's not like VR is anything new. What they're trying to do is push it for the consumer market. Right. I don't see it. That's the problem. You can't make something popular. You have to organically allow it to become popular. And as we know, if you ever doubt yourself, just remember beta versus VHS. The best product doesn't necessarily win. It's the product that's the cheapest, that's the most efficient, and the most user accessible. And that's not what I see with VR.
But and the one thing that I can think about that is that I think VR companies are doing this. If they could put out a product that was the same price as a console and it didn't have to be connected to another system, I think they absolutely would. I think they would make it as cheap as possible to get the interest going there. But at the end of the day, I've been getting this feeling that they don't want to release a product, and I'm getting this from the HTC Vive, the Oculus Rift, and a couple of, and to some smaller extent, even Sony with their PlayStation VR, even they have said that they wish they had put more technology in, just like the other two I just mentioned, because they know that their VR is not going to be, comparable to the full-blown systems. But the only thing I want to say about that was that they want to release a product. They hate that there's almost a $2,000 price tag attached to it, and obviously that is going to put it firmly in the hands of hobbyists and maybe some of the more insane people who really like the idea of VR games.
Yeah.
But they don't want to do it horribly. They don't want to fall into the 3D TV mistake of saying, all right, we kind of have it figured out, but everyone has to wear these glasses. Or even with the glasses free 3D TV, they said, well, it only works if you look at it from this 15-degree viewing angle, and everyone else is just going to fall over themselves as they try to climb stairs. Like they want to do it so that the experience is there, and I'm sure they could. I'm sure they wish that they could wait the 3 years and say, well, in 3 years, processors will be cheaper, faster, smaller, less batteries, and and everyone's gonna have better equipment. But they want to put something out now because that's I guess now is the time. It has to be this way.
Well, let me put it this way. If we waited for things to be perfect, we would have never had Atari. We would have never had Pong. We would have never had Adventure. We've never had Pac-Man. We've never had Super Mario. We would have never had Zelda. We would have never had Grand Theft Auto. We would have never had anything because we want to wait till things look perfect. But no, the concept is that we We deal with the inadequacies of imperfection. We deal with them because the overall experience trumps the purpose of one-to-one perfection. When Nintendo announced the original Wii, people got this impression that it was this full immersion motion control, and they went up and said, "Oh, it's just like playing tennis." Have you played the Wii? It's nothing like playing tennis, but you go through the motions of putting your arm in the air, and people are having fun. And you know what? You didn't have to convince a damn person to buy that thing. They sold 100 million of them. The people are still playing them because it looked like fun. It looked great. And VR looks awful. It looks terrible. It looks like torture. And you can't sell torture to people. Well, you can sell torture to some people, but I'm not one of those people. But what I'm saying is that if you have to convince somebody to buy your product, then you have a problem. And going back to one more negative Nancy comment about this, I really don't know how we got on VR, but I'd be happy to talk about it. But the fact is that you look at PC gaming. PC gaming is a mess. It's a niche genre that basically offers a slightly enhanced version of what people can get on consoles if you're willing to pay the money, and if you're willing to configure your system, and if you're willing to put up with drivers and incompatibility and updates and DRM and all this stuff. So basically, you're a masochist by definition. You could go and buy a PlayStation for $350 and play Batman perfectly, or you can spend $900 and maybe play a game that may not crash on you every 10 seconds. And as a bonus, added bonus, you don't get to do anything with the game you bought. You have to keep it. You can't trade it. You can't let somebody borrow it. So you are a masochist who likes to pay more because you feel at the end of the rainbow the experience will be superior. In most cases, it is, if you're willing to jump through the hoops. It's not mass market, not even close. These are not the people that can be pushing a mass market thing like VR. It has to be on a consumer side. It has to be grandmothers. It has to be young people. It has to be that. Otherwise, they're going to scare people away. They're going to scare people away by how stupid it looks and how techy it looks. And a potentially really cool thing will be killed in the bud, like it always is, by the people who hug it to death. And they love it so much they're not allowed to say anything negative or cynical about it. So all the tech companies and all the tech people that are like lemmings that walk off this VR cliff, I'm not one of them. I'm actually saying this is no way.
I absolutely am one of them. I tried the HTC Vive. I am really, really excited about the future of VR. We have we have companies, game development companies on the show every week. It seems like now who are trying to develop the next VR game and trying to make sure the content that when you do purchase this, when you pop money down, you get something worth your money.
Well, when those companies go out of business because there's no market for it, they have no one else to blame. The fact is, if you spend money to develop for an untried platform that has no installed user base, you're not going to sell your game. You're not going to sell it. And when those companies, when they go bankrupt, like they always do, I mean, they have to look at the cost benefit, and they have to look at the realities of the market. They have to say, you know what, if we spend $5 billion and make this game, but there's only 5,000 people who can buy it, you have to take that into consideration.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, and that's why a lot of games that we see nowadays are actually developed by smaller teams. It's not like AAA blockbuster, $1 million, throw at the game, and then it's like, oh, you only have 14,000 people who are going to buy it for $10 a piece. You're not making anywhere near what you invested. It's definitely smaller teams, but I want to see VR happen. I'm going to throw as much as I can behind VR because I like the idea. I like what I've seen. And again, this is just our views. This is just the views of the host, but I totally want VR to happen. So I'm going to throw as much as I can at it.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I would like to see it happen too, but it needs to happen in a way that benefits the consumer and doesn't punish them. And the idea, it's like anything else. You need a standardization, and right now you have two competing large formats. You have HTC Vive and you have Oculus that are not compatible with each other, that offer radically different experiences. And then there's no consolidation there. So therefore, you have to choose one or the other. You don't have to choose a keyboard or a mouse. They all work with each other. You don't have to choose a video card for the most part, unless it's AMD. For the most part, there are standards. Like we just talked about this with cable boxes. There needs to be a standard moving forward. And right now, we're in the very beginning infancy of an industry that has not consolidated around anything. And that's not even counting Microsoft or Sony. And so, I mean, they need to get together and they need to make a VR standard moving forward. The closest thing you have to a standard is YouTube. Go figure. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not a cynic. Believe it or not, I'm actually not a cynic. I'm not saying this will fail. I'm saying it will fail if they don't address these things that traditionally have always trumped everything. So, I mean, they need to learn from the history of how to introduce a new product. And the cool thing about VR, Ben, is that it has a history of failure. They can learn from this failure. And the one thing they need is they need Angela Lansbury to come out and wear a VR helmet and solve some mysteries. They tried it 20 years ago, it didn't work. I think we're ready for her now. Murder, She Wrote in VR.
Well, there you go.
I'm not even making that up either.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. I think we've beaten that one to death.
How did we get on VR? We were talking about Nintendo?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
so Nintendo, and just say real quick, Nintendo, they're not releasing their new console at E3 this year, but they are focusing on another Zelda franchise. So,
which, by the way, will appear on the next console. And for anybody who knows Nintendo and Zelda knows they have a history of doing that too.
Yep.
All right, when we come back, let's talk a little bit about Cortana. Again, evidently, the story just released. Cortana web searches in Windows 10, they'll only be able to open Edge and Bing. In other words, yeah, exactly. Not what we want to hear. There's a limitation. But we'll continue on with Nathan Evans, managing editor of Popzara magazine. We're going to have our social media winner of the week coming up as well. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. You're listening to the Computer America Show. Please stay with us. Hi, this is Craig Crossman, host of the Computer America Show. Long before Vistaprint asked me to tell you about them, my wife and I have been using Vistaprint for years, making business cards, having the Computer America logo placed on the polo shirts we use at conventions like CES, even printing a business card for our personal lives with our home address and phone number. In fact, Vistaprint offers tons of custom products for home and office needs, and Vistaprint absolutely guarantees you'll love their products every time, or they will make it right. In fact, they'll give you 500 business cards for just $9.99 when you enter my promo code Craig at checkout. Just go to their website at www.vistaprint.com and see how easy it is to design your own stuff using their web-based custom design service. Remember to use my code Craig and save up to 50% over their regular pricing. So don't wait. Go to vistaprint.com and order today. Looking for a best friend? Brother Wolf Animal Rescue has your best friend waiting just for you. The mission of Brother Wolf Animal Rescue is to help build a sustainable, no-kill community where no dogs or cats are ever killed for population control, where true euthanasia is reserved only for animals who are irremediably suffering, or for animals who are truly a threat to society and with no hope of rehabilitation. Brother Wolf's staff and volunteers go door to door, neighborhood by neighborhood, to educate citizens about local resources available for at-risk pets and to help their families connect with those resources. Brother Wolf's community-based approach to no-kill helps keep family pets healthy, happy, and in their homes and out of the local shelter system in the first place. For more information or to make a tax-deductible donation to this wonderful 501c3 organization, visit their website at www.bwar.org. Help to realize Brother Wolf's vision when no animal is euthanized for lack of a home.
And you think zombies have back doors on their coffins? Hi, I'm Marty Winston with a News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America. This time, the cooler duet. When we lived up in the blizzard belt, there wasn't any hurry about finding ways to beat the heat on the porch or patio. But summer temperatures, now that we're down in the south, hit early. So we were glad that we got in a cooler home duet evaporative cooler for review. It's a nice little tower with a swivel at the base and a second swiveling section nearer the top. The combo lets you point its two jets towards same or different places. You fill a gallon of drinkable water in the bottom, plug it in, turn it on, set the fan speed, and optionally activate its misting mini droplet spray. Yes, to a good extent, it feels like an outdoor air conditioner. So bottom line, it's cool how cooler gets you cooler. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
Welcome back to the Computer America Show. Yes, and we are here in our last half hour. This show has gone by so quick.
Yeah.
Shame, really, it's a shame because we're having a good time on this lovely Friday with Nate Evans from Popzara magazine. And yeah, so just finished up VR. Gonna put that away. Just kind of lock that back up. And Craig mentioned before the break this thing that I personally makes Cortana even less attractive. And trust me, she was a sexy beast in Halo, but now she's less attractive with this new. Of course, I think we're going to pull from this article from Ars Technica, saying that Cortana web searches in Windows 10 will now only be able to open Edge and Bing.
But before we do that, we have
that's right. We have a giveaway. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, we
do that here, don't we?
Yeah, we have to do our social media winner of the week. So let's do that right now. This week's social media winner for the Logitech M535 Bluetooth wireless mouse is Sandra Davis. Sandra Davis, congratulations. Now, Sandra listens to Computer America in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay? And again, she was a Logitech M535 Bluetooth mouse that works with Windows, Mac, Chrome OS, Android. If it has Bluetooth, it works with it. Valid at $40. Congratulations to you, Sandra, for being this week's social media winner. And again, head over to computeramerica.com and enter our social media contest. It's right there on our homepage under the pull-down menu that says Interact. And it's the first one that says Social Media Contest. All the social media outlets to Computer America listed right there. Just follow them, enter them, subscribe to them, and each one counts as an entry up to 5 different social media events every single week. And you'll have up to 5 entries every single week from then on. All right, so yeah, we're talking about this Cortana story here that Nathan pointed out to us that basically says that, hey, guess what? Cortana her growing power means she can't use third-party search and browsers, only Edge and Bing.
How dare you? How dare you only use the least popular search engine instead of the most popular? That sounds a lot. That sounds very useful.
Pretty much.
Good. Microsoft, no. See, all I have to say is this. I've tried to use Cortana. You can even use it on a Mac if you have Parallels. You can use it natively. And if you go on the Popzara website, there's a review for something called the Amazon Tap. And I don't know if you know about the Amazon Echo, which is, Amazon's little standalone central Internet of Things hub. But their digital assistant is called Alexa. And the whole gimmick is that you could say, hey, Alexa, and it goes bing, bing, and you could talk to it and you could ask it anything you want, the weather, whatever. But you could also say, turn on the lights or order me an Uber. It's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting, and it plugs into a lot of Amazon services. But it plugs into a lot of services that are not Amazon. But on the Tap, they sort of reduce that to non-usefulness because you have to touch it. And the same thing goes with Cortana. Cortana is a nice idea. It's a nice Siri clone, whatever. But people use Google, people use Yahoo, people use other things besides Bing, and by reducing it to something that people don't want to use, I think Microsoft feels, oh, we'll just manipulate them. Okay, first of all, Microsoft, you're already having trouble getting people to download a free copy of Windows 10. PC sales are way down. Your phone is DOA. Cortana is not a hit. And now you're going to make it even more cumbersome by taking away the search engine that most people use. So when Cortana fails, you have no one else to blame but yourself. It's a stupid idea.
Do we predict that we'll see another turnaround, with Microsoft? They're going to say, oops, okay, sorry, we didn't mean to do that.
Sure.
And we'll go back to it.
Why not?
They've done it before.
Yeah, they that's their new MO. They just say, hey, we're going to try this. In fact, it's not just Microsoft. It's every company now. They just sort of they say they're going to do something just to test the waters, and they see who rabble rouses and who complains the most. So
Well,
but you know,
they need someone like you or somebody to keep the reality window open and say, this isn't going to fly. And what universe do you think this would work?
well,
Why would you even position yourself and put yourself in this position in the first place?
hey, I come bearing facts, and the fact is going to be iPhone and Google. When the iPhone came out, it had Google apps all over it. In fact, Apple and Google worked very hard to create the iPhone apps. So there's a lot of really cool stories about it. You should read about it. Go read about Steve Jobs calling the Google developer at like church about the color red. It's fascinating stuff.
Mhm.
But anyway, the relationship soon soured when Google decided to make Android. Blah 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 blah. So one of the things that Apple tried to do was banish Google apps. Famously, they famously said, we're going to make Apple Maps. Remember this?
Mhm.
Instead of using the popular Google Maps that everybody and their infant sons use,
Mhm.
they had this inferior product, and therefore Google didn't update, whatever. It didn't work. And now Google pays Apple $1 billion to make sure that all these wonderfully created, wonderful Google apps are all available on my iPhone. I have an iPod Touch, which is basically an iPhone, and all my default apps for the most part are Google apps. I have Gmail, I have Google Maps, I have all kinds of Google goodness. If I had to use Apple stuff, I wouldn't like it as much for the most part. There's some things Apple does better, but there's a lot of things that Google does better. And if you get a Windows phone, there's no Google apps. So Microsoft, I don't know what you're doing, and we're probably really just ripping into nothing. But the fact is, people prefer Google to Bing. There's no way around it. And a couple of years ago, I was really mad at Google because Google did some bad stuff, and so I switched all my search providers to Bing. And I switched them back not too long later because Bing does give you different. Okay, and let me be clear about this. I'm not the biggest Google enthusiast in the world. Everything I just told you that I use Google stuff, it's true. I do, because there's nothing better. And if there was something better, I would use it. But there is nothing better. Google invests a lot of money into this. They do a lot of work into their search. That being said, Ben, Google also censors their search results a lot. And this is becoming increasingly bad. There are cases when I will have to go and search Bing to get the stuff that I want to find because Google decides I shouldn't see that. And they have a history with this, and that's why you have to be cautious about these companies because they go too far. And like Craig, you were talking about everyone's into VR. Well, it helps to have the cynic once in a while, the one with the tinfoil hat saying, hey, the end of the world's coming.
Well, that's why we have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm the tinfoil hat wearer. No, but the fact is that Google has been chastised for this. They've been sanctioned. They've been fined for this sort of stuff. Their own Eric Schmidt has gone on board and said some crazy things about wanting to do your thinking for you. And as I go outside and I see people walking across the street in front of traffic with cell phones and driving with cell phones and text messaging and everybody's plugged in, then I realize I'm in the minority of this. And there are a lot of people who would very much like to have their phone think for them. I am not one of those people. I like to think for myself. And I'd like to have and I may not love Bing. I think of it as a third-rate search engine, but I like it. But I also want my Google. And if Microsoft, if you honestly think you have the power and you have the weight to do this anymore, you don't. And the last time you tried something this stupid, you got yourself fined there's this word again, as a monopoly by the U.S. government. You cannot force people to use your crappy product. You can't do it. And if you have to force people to use your crappy product, then well, I think that speaks for itself.
Yeah, Netscape. It was the Netscape debacle.
It was Windows 98. They integrated Internet Explorer into the Windows Explorer, and they made it the default search engine, and basically got them into a lot of trouble. Yeah. And Netscape was the better browser, but it basically was excluded because it wasn't default. But it ended up having a happy ending because they went off and created the Mozilla Foundation. Yeah. So I mean history has a way of working out, unless it doesn't. But look, I don't know a single person who actively uses Cortana. I don't. I really don't. And by the way, I think the worst thing about Cortana is that Microsoft, you named your virtual assistant after a crazy Android artificial intelligence from a first-person shooter game. Not cool. She went crazy and tried to kill the universe. Siri, at least the most that Siri does is that she can't find you a movie actor name. She doesn't try to kill you. No, not yet, anyway. Not yet. But no, I mean, Alexa, Siri, Cortana, whatever. I mean, come on, where's the dudes? It's all women. But no, but anyway,
I don't know. I think they chose women because they found that, if you give it a female personality or like a female name
True.
and kind of personify it as female, men, I don't want to say were attracted to it, but they were willing to use it, and women were disarmed by it. Like, if it's
no, you're
creepy
right.
male
I mean,
voice.
but for all this talk about gender inequity and all this talk about sexism and technology and everything, ironically, the history of male servants has been much more progressive than it has with females. So I'm going to invent a virtual assistant for my operating system when I make one, and I'm going to call it Butch.
Butch.
And Butch won't do anything like any other guy. He'll just say, Butch, get me a beer. No. It'll be like that robot in Rocky 3. That didn't work anything like it should have. So
it's gonna be like the useless machine or like the useless switch or whatever that one toy is, except it'll be the useless assistant.
To be honest with you, they're all kind of useless.
Yeah,
they're all kind of worthless. Alexa is the best one when you have the Amazon Echo, only because you can talk to it. But Siri and Cortana and all this stuff, they're nice distractions. And I will tell you this: I will go on record. Is a little thing. I've had some eye problems and I've had some vision problems and I've had to put some medicine in my eyes. And once in a while, I do touch my iPod and I talk to Siri and I say send a message or send a text and everything. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Cortana's nothing like that. Cortana is exactly what you think it is. It's a cloned product that's inferior, and Microsoft is not doing it or them any favors by doing something like this. They would be advised to not do that.
When I send text, I use Siri all the time to send text, and I'll see Ben furiously using his thumb, and it's like, Ben, just say it, just speak it, but he doesn't want to do that. So,
because it's faster if I type it.
Microsoft just released a keyboard for iOS, a one-handed keyboard, which is weird, but yeah, you can download it right now, and I haven't used it yet, but apparently it's supposed to be pretty. It's made by the company who made Swift, I believe. But Microsoft, they're progressive on some things and very retrogressive on other things. But again, Cortana, it's limited by it's very limited by Microsoft. They don't have the user base, despite being on a Windows machine. I want to be clear: PC sales are down. Nobody really wants a Windows 10. People are struggling. They're going back to Windows 7. I like Windows 10. I like it just fine. But there's some privacy issues, and specifically with Cortana, and specifically with the way that whole thing is structured. So Microsoft, you would do yourself a favor by switching up real fast and forgetting you ever did something so stupid.
Mm. Well, hopefully they're listening, or somebody.
If enough, the way the world goes now, enough people need to gripe about it on Twitter, then they'll make a change. That's the only thing that gets people attention anymore. Logic, facts, democracy, doesn't matter. Griping on Twitter gets your way. Sad.
Yeah. You don't get positive reviews, but the negative reviews, they come through. People respond.
Yeah. How do we shut the whiners up? That's pretty much everything.
Exactly. So you're saying it's the whiners that make the world go round.
I think it's a combination of whiners who understand their power to overwhelm the majority, and I think it's the really wussy companies that give the whiners too much power. It's very symbiotic, and it's very sad. Very sad.
Well, we have about 10 minutes left, and
plenty of other news stories.
Let's rush through them.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, one that we did kind of hint at a little bit sooner. Well, you mentioned it offhandedly as we were talking about Nintendo and for some reason the Wii U eventually. Sony and how much money they're sitting on, and this was, and you brought this to our attention, that PlayStation 4 boosts Sony to first full year profit in 3 years, which is something good. It's good to be in the red and then finally back in the black.
Yes, a lot of it basically has to do with two things. One, Sony's selling a lot of PlayStations, but they're also not selling a lot of junk. They've cleaved off a lot of loser developments like I can't talk right now. The Vio laptop, they don't own that anymore. It's gone. So it's a lot of these dead weight product divisions are no longer holding Sony back. They've consolidated. They've become a very streamlined company once again. They're not a market leader in pretty much anything, but they're doing very well, and they've saved the company. And when you look at the never-ending recession that Japan is in, and you look at the state of Japanese gaming, they're doing very well for themselves, and they should be applauded for making the right decisions and focusing on their marquee brand, which is PlayStation and movies.
Okay.
Which they're doing.
Which they're doing very well, by the way.
I remember, I mean, again, from my experience, Sony was the name to have in televisions. I mean, when you had a Sony TV, you had you spent more for it, and it was the best television out there.
Yes.
That's no longer that way.
No, it is not. It is fast becoming Samsung and, of all things, Vizio.
Vizio is what, yeah, they're making some incredible televisions, and,
Yes,
and
they are.
at affordable prices.
Yeah, shocking, I know. But I remember being at CES a couple years ago, and we were privy to one of Vizio's private shows, and they were talking about all this 3D stuff and how they were going to get on 3D, and they were going to have Google TV, and they were all in that. I don't think any of that stuff ever came out because they realized really quickly this was all dead ends. And so when you're a small company and you don't have a lot of waste, you do better job of managing your resources. And Vizio has done a remarkable job of becoming a crapware into amazingware. And I'm in the process of actually looking at a Vizio 4K TV for a friend. And so they would be my first choice.
We did. We around December we bought a 4K 55-inch flat panel TV from Vizio, and it was like $600. And this was
No. It was like $500. It was.
Yeah, they're getting cheaper. They're getting even cheaper. It's amazing.
And they just introduced a new the HDR version of the TV, which some of this things like Netflix are going to be supporting that format as well. And instead of having a remote, they have it's like an iPod. It's like a flat panel with a remote. But it's all part of the price. I know.
Yeah, they're doing wonderful, and I would strongly recommend people to look at Vizio.
And they're beautiful to look at. I mean, some of the styling of these things are gorgeous.
I mean, you drop them and they crack, but other than that, I mean, they're okay.
Well, they drop anything, it's going to crack.
No, I know, but Sony is doing a wonderful job, and they should be applauded for making the right decisions. And like what we began about with the Spider-Man, allowing Disney to use Spider-Man, and making movies out of their properties and saving money. I mean, this is how a company survives. This is what a company does. These are the right decisions, and that's cool. And I applaud them because I would love to see Sony return to what they used to be. They used to be really cool. Sony, the name meant a lot.
It meant quality, and it was like number one. Anything that Sony did, their products came, they were like the top of the line, especially their TVs.
Yes, and they lost it, and now they're recovering it, and good for them. They should be applauded.
Yeah. Okay. So what else can we talk about? We have a whole bunch of stories that we can cover in the next 9 minutes.
Okay. Well, what else we got?
Scientists name a hairy little beetle after Chewie.
Well, it's about time. It's a couple. I talked about a book on the site last year from Richard Dawkins, the famous evolutionary guy and atheist. And I really like Richard Dawkins. But famously he talked about they named a bug after him. I don't know if you guys remember that. It's for some reason this seems to be the new thing. It used to be name a star, like a constellation or a star after somebody. Now it's naming insects. Mm-hmm. And when I was growing up, you ever read the comic strip or comic panel Far Side?
Yes.
And there was a very famous, I forget the name of the actual book, the actual one, but it came out around 1990, and Gary Larson talked about the fact that they named a bug after him. And I believe it's called, it's like Strigophilus garrylarsoni. It's a chewing louse, and it's only found on owls, and they named it after Gary Larson. And if you actually read this book, in the inside cover, he playfully put like thousands of little photographs of this little bug in there. And he said, oh, this is a great honor. Like, no one's ever named a bug after me. And so that Chewbacca, it's taken him 40 years to be recognized. Ooh. And, there's if you look online, I'm looking at a story right now about all the famous people. It seems like there's a parasite named after Bob Marley, a horsefly named after Beyonce, a lemur named after John Cleese, a beetle named after George Bush, a beetle named after Kate Winslet. Oh, here we go. A beetle named after Hitler. There you go.
Oh, gosh.
David Attenborough has a plesiosaur. Hugh Hefner has a rabbit, which makes sense. And a frog named after Prince Charles, which is kind of redundant. But there you go. And so now Chewbacca is part of that luminous list of famous celebrities that have something named after them.
Trigonopterus Chewbacca.
There we go. I mean, it's about time.
Yep, and that is a well-known tradition in the scientific community, is that if you discover an insect that has thoroughly diverged from any other known, insect on record, if you discover the new species, you get to name it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they used to name it after themselves, or they used to name it after where they were located, or what they eat on, or whatever they do. But you're right. In recent history, it has been what pop culture thing can you name it after? Because it's kind of a win-win. I mean, here we are talking about Trigonopterus Chewbacca, when in reality, why would we ever talk about a beetle? It's win-win because they get to name the beetle, and they found a new beetle, but also you get to draw some media attention to it.
I'm of two minds because I like reading about this stuff for fun. So I'm kind of a science nerd. But on the other hand, like you said, we would not be having this conversation if it wasn't named after Chewbacca. And it reminds me of that story we saw about a week ago about the Fed was talking about they're going to name a new a new $20 bill, and they're going to have Harriet Tubman on it. Yep. And apparently, originally, to replace Andrew Jackson, originally they were going to get rid of Alexander Hamilton, which is foolishness. But here's the thing. It turns out the success of the Broadway smash Hamilton caused people to write in and say, no, we want Hamilton to stay on the $10 bill. So it didn't take his legacy as a founding father or a luminary or a proponent of capitalism. It took a hip-hop musical to save Hamilton on the $10 bill. That's just the world we live in. And I talked a minute ago about Twitter people griping. It can also have positive effects too. I mean, the average person does not care about science in this country or in most countries. The average person does not care about, Chewbacca lemurs or whatever. They care about Kim Kardashian and PlayStation. So anything that gets them a little interested in science can't be all bad. Or smash hip-hop musicals.
Right place, right time for Hamilton. So
yeah, exactly.
Lucky him.
I actually read I saw the other day that the book by Chernoff, the Hamilton book, was back on the bestseller list. I was like, I read that 15 years ago. So I was like, I'm progressive. So, but anyway, no,
I liked Hamilton
cool.
after he was cool and before people thought he was cool again.
Yeah, Hamilton. I mean, he was a founding father who was never a president or anything, and he died in a duel. The guy's badass, but he's also a fool about that too.
Aaron Burr.
Yes, who was vice president, I think, at the time.
Who some say I am actually a distant relative of. Fun fact. That's
Could be.
That is a legend of family. Something we heard from our grandfather. My brother is actually named Aaron. He's our webmaster, and in honor of Aaron Burr. That's a story that no one ever really took the time to prove, so we're just counting it.
Yeah, you just have to, just say, but now it has cachet. If you would have said that 5 years ago, now it's like, yeah, my great-great-great-grandfather killed Hamilton.
Pretty much.
Screw you. No, but, I just heard the other day that Martin Scorsese may be making a movie based on George Washington. And I was like, yes, somebody's heard my prayers. I've never understood why there's never been a really good George Washington movie. Like,
does he have superpowers, or worse than the Marvel universe, or
probably it'll be part of the American Revolutionary Connected Universe, Phase 1. Then comes Hamilton. But you know what though? This wouldn't have happened had it not been for hip hop musical Hamilton. So yes, I am completely down with whatever it takes to get people interested. Because I know it'll only be tertiary, it'll only last a few minutes, but then I'll have more people to talk to about it. Because right now I'm so lonely. There's no one to talk about. There's no one to talk about history with. Everyone wants to talk. They want to talk about Kardashians and tweets, and no one ever wants to talk about real stuff. So it's fun.
Tell us what's happening with Popzara. We got about a minute left.
Well, we are chugging towards June. As you know, E3 is coming up. We plan on attending.
Oh. Okay.
And hopefully new site revision, new podcasts, new all kinds of goodies. Should be enough goodies for this weekend. I believe our mutual friend Grayson Hamilton will be seeing the Ratchet and Clank movie this weekend, so hopefully we can report back on that. Just more good stuff. I mean, more of what you love and less of what you don't. So.
Right. Again, head over to popzara.com. Well, Nathan, again, what can I say? It's always a pleasure having you here on the show, and I guess.
You just like me because you don't have to use like the 7-second delay button.
Well, yeah.
We probably should, but we don't. We absolutely don't.
Yeah, exactly. We're scheduled to see you back on the 27th of May, which is the last Friday of the month, and we hopefully will see you there again. And if you don't already have it down your calendar, you should please do so.
Hold on, scribble. No, I had it on there. Okay. No, it's always fun, guys. Thank you for allowing me to rant, rave, and remember to spay and neuter your pets.
Exactly. And we got 5. Yeah, exactly. Stay with us to the end, of course. All right.
90 seconds.
Coming up on Monday, we're going to talk a little bit about. We're going to have a company called Green Bank on. We're going to have Mr. Danny Wetrich on. He is the CEO of this company, basically talking about Green CoinX, which is another cyber currency. It's sort of like Bitcoin, but it's different than Bitcoin. And we're going to be talking about that with him. And then in the second hour,
60 seconds.
Computer and Technology News, brought to you by Slimware Utilities, the official optimization software of Computer America. Hey, everybody, listen, thank you all so much for being here. Have a great weekend. Do something fun. Go out there. And again, congratulations to Sandra Davis in North Little Rock, Arkansas, for being our Logitech winner of the week with that M535 Bluetooth wireless mouse. And Ben and I will see you here, same time, same place, same station. So until Monday afternoon, this is Craig Crossman hoping that your hard disk never becomes floppy. We'll see you Monday.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. How about a little woohoo? Woohoo! There you go.
10 seconds. Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Okay, again, everybody watching our video, thank you for being here with us on our live streaming video. Again, thanks, Nathan, and we'll see you next month, okay?
We'll see you guys then. Thank you.
All right, bye, everybody. Have a great weekend. See you Monday.
Bye-bye.